snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, so I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is book number 2 in the Malazan Empire series, which is by Ian Esslempnt, not the Erikson series. The reason that I'm reviewing this one now is because the Esslemont books work in between some of the other books by Erikson chronologically, and so I read this in between the 7th and the 8th of Stephen Erikson's books. I was rather hesitant to go into this book, I must admit, because I didn't really care for Knight of Knives, which was the first one by Esslemont. His writing style just doesn't work or flow as well as Erikson's. He's not that lyrical, he doesn't describe things in as much detail, he kind of gets straight to the point, but equally I don't think he manages to get much attachment to the characters for me, and I wish he could get me more attached to the characters, because then the storyline would probably be more interesting to me. But unfortunately that didn't quite happen. I do think this was an improvement on his first book massively, but I still don't think it's at the same level as Erikson at all. The storyline in this one is definitely faster paced. That's one of the things you notice that Erikson doesn't do and Esslemont does, and the book is shorter because of that. It's faster paced, it has quite a lot of action and quite a lot of fight scenes and things, which we also get in Erikson's, but they're a bit more drawn out. I think that you can see that Esslemont really likes to get straight to the point. I like this approach because it means that you do get straight there. You're not sort of dilly-dallying around, you're not sort of having masses of description or inner turmoil that you're reading, which sometimes does get a bit heavy in the Erikson books, but equally I don't feel the attachment. The main storyline of this is again told from multiple POVs, as always with the Malazan books, and one of the main characters that we meet pretty early on is called Kyle. Kyle was probably the character I connected with most in this, mainly because he is new to the Crimson Guard and he basically is the reader. He is the one who shows us things and introduces us to things. Because he's new as a new member, he has the ability to explain things that otherwise older members wouldn't need to explain, so I quite liked that that was a device that Esslemont used to explain the story and explain the different hierarchy within the Crimson Guard and the systems that they had and just generally what they were doing. I also thought that Kyle himself was a pretty likeable character and quite easy to follow and get along with and enjoy reading about. I really liked when he met up with Traveller as well. That was a pretty interesting twist that I didn't necessarily see coming, and I liked Traveller a lot. Traveller was a really interesting character throughout the book actually, and continues to be later in the series, so very enjoyable. We are continually left guessing, like Kyle is, about the nature of Traveller. We don't really know who he is. He's very mysterious, he's very kind of shrouded in mystery, and he's on this sort of quest that we don't know an awful lot about. We find out more about it as it goes on, and you're constantly trying to guess who he is. Honestly, I have a hard time choosing any other favourite characters. Those were probably my favourite too, because although each viewpoint in this is interesting enough to keep me reading, it doesn't entice me, it doesn't connect with me. When most of the characters got sort of wrapped up in this one big battle, I didn't really care for any of them. Like, I wasn't that fussed if any of them died, sadly, which I don't think is a good sign in a book. On the whole, I would say that this is a really easy read. It is easy to get through, it's fast-paced, it's adventurous, and if you know the world of Malazan, then you are going to learn extra things about the characters, the timeline, and the way that things sort of work. I do think that the Crimson Guard are an interesting faction within the Malazan world, and that seeing them and seeing the events of this unfold is kind of crucial before you go into the 8th book if you don't want to be massively spoiled for this one. Having now read the 8th book, I can say that. But I don't think it's essential reading, to be honest. It's only if you don't want to be spoiled for this book that you have to read it. Otherwise, it's up to you. I don't think it adds a massive amount of stuff to the plot, but I do think it introduces some characters. I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys. Let me know whether you think it's worth reading if you've read it and what you thought of it if you have, because I do think a lot of people say that you need to read this one, and for me, it's interesting, it has some good moments, but it just isn't on the same level as Erikson, and it always kind of feels a little bit like a disappointment when I go into an Esslemont book, which is kind of a really horrible thing to say, but I just don't enjoy them as much. For me, this was a book that was just okay, it was likeable, and there were some good moments, but that was pretty much it, so I couldn't give it higher than a 3 stars. That's all I gave it. I do hope that he continues to get better as a writer as it goes on, because I now have 2 more books of his to read after having read the 8th one. So I'm hopeful that he's going to get better as it goes, because the first book was a lot worse than this one, but I'm not entirely sure. Only a 3 out of 5 stars from me. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat about books.